In the beginning, we saw a man was thrown on the ground during an intense fight in a demonic place. The man was decimated, thinking he might gonna die. Just then, a strange group of guys shows up from the shadows, and rather giving him some first aid, they start to praise him for improving so much over the past 2 years of training. So, he should have no problem taking the E-rank adventurer exam. It turns out that these guys are his mentors, and he wanted to be an E-rank adventurer. Normally, in this world, the adventurers are all young people due to their ability to withstand strains that gets onto their body. But there are still some adults who never give up on their dreams. That is why our hero Rick is still trying to give his entrance exam. He walks up to the reception and asks for his exam card to be issued. But while the receptionist confirming his details, she recognizes him and excitedly reminds him that they used to know each other. Rick doesn't recognize her at first, but soon recalls that he last saw her 2 years ago. They used to be co-workers. She was shocked when she came to know that Rick has resigned from his job, and even more when she knew he is quitting his job to become an adventurer. Rick is a little bit embarrassed since the people in their 30s like him wouldn't apply to become an adventurer. Normally, people apply or reach a G rank on their teens and work their way up to E within few years. The receptionist asks what Rick has been up to in this years. For the past 2 years, she hasn't heard about him at all. So Rick explains to her that he has been on an extreme training sessions with his mentors on the mountains. Just then, a regular drunk guy at the place came up to the desk and started trying to flirt with the receptionist, aka Elisa. But when she tries to decline, because she is still obviously working, the guy doesn't take no as answer, so he started getting forceful. And that's when Rick decided to step in. He pulls the men aside, and by doing this, he lightly just tabs his stomach gently. But that was enough of a force for the man to be unconscious. Rick doesn't realize that, and he assumes that the overdoses of alcohol is the cause of his unconsciousness. The receptionist apologized for the inconvenience the drunk guy caused, but Rick assures her that it's no problem, and he understands, as he was a receptionist too, once upon a time. After that, Rick receives his registration card. He heads outside where a beautiful maid named O.N.A was waiting for him and greets him. She asks if Rick is done with his registration or not. Rick confirms her that it's well completed and thanks her for waiting for him that long. But, while he is saying, he constantly looking towards O.N.A's 2 beautiful bubbles. O.N.A calls him out on this, so Rick quickly tries to change the topic and says about how much excited he is for the exam. Meanwhile, at the reception desk, other adventurers or candidates are shocked at seeing the handprint left on the drunk guy's armor. His armor was made of by dense steel. Whoever did this must be really strong. Just then 2 men walks in and recognizes him. They saw him while back. His name is Domald, and he's an A-rank adventurer who's been wanted for 30 counts of assault. Elisa knows that Rick is the one who did this, but if he really is that powerful, then he might be overqualified. Meanwhile, Rick is getting his physical exam. His height is measured about 5'8". The physicians are surprised that Rick is taking this exam when he's already 30 plus of age. After that period, the examinees were brought into another room where they instructed to put their hands onto the crystal ball to measure their mana. The ball will glow depending on the amount of mana a person possesses. So each participant touches the glass ball and they all have satisfying results. But when Rick puts his hand on the magic ball, it barely glows for a little. So the examiner gives Rick an F for his mana test. The other candidates begin mocking Rick for having such a low mana score. But as he leaves, the examiner calls for another candidate to start the measurement. And suddenly the ball gets destroyed completely. Then the next test began to measure the candidates' offensive abilities. So they get instructed to hit this green punching bag as hard as they can. It is made out of a special type of material that can absorb any impact, so they doesn't need to worry about damaging it. Rick remembers a time when he was training with a golden punching bag, and the time when one of his mentors told him that he must be able to destroy these bags only by his fists. Rick doesn't think that was even possible, because the golden punching bags are made out of the ultimate hard material available. But his mentor told him that it was a simple thing to do if he wanted to be an adventurer. as his mentor was able to easily destroy those bags effortlessly. Rick became motivated to train until it broke even if he had to punch it for thousands or millions of times. He reminds that training and back to the present, the candidates start to line up for the strike they have to give. After the first guy gives a kick with his full force, another candidate comes up, who's known to be the second son of the Diarmwheat family. It is rumored that his magic is as powerful as a C-rank adventurer, despite he is just 11 years old. As he begins, he casts a hellfire spell, and everyone is surprised, including Rick. Although they were surprised because the spell was so small that the fireball launched and hit the target with a tickle. But the judges are actually impressed with this kid's output. So Rick is even more shocked since the fireball his magic instructor throws at him was far more extreme than this. So, Rick usually assumes that the fireball of this kid must be more powerful that he didn't want to apply to not getting the building destroyed. So, as the period goes on, everyone gives their offense test one by one. Soon it came Rick's turn to do that. But when he's walking up to the stage, one judge calls him and asks if he is really 30 years old. Rick says yes. Then that judge says, "You're too old for this exam and this stuff." Training doesn't yield that much result unless it started at a very young age, and considering his mana exam was that bad, he could quit before he makes a fool out of himself. Hearing this, Rick knows people are judging him for being too old and started feeling a little bit of unclarity. But he can't give up because he trained so hard to get to this point. Punching and kicking until his knuckles were red in blood, but he kept punching and punching. All that pain has to count for something. So, even if he had a disadvantage, he is going to give his everything he has. So, he forms up his punch, and as the bag gets into the contact of his hand, it gets exploded with a blink of an eye and goes flying through the wall, leaving everyone clueless of what had happened. But Rick was not expecting the bag to be so weak. Our kid can't believe what he just saw. He's decimated by Rick's success because he thinks it's his stage to be shine on. But he can accept it for now, since his magic is specialized in defensive mode, so he makes sure to outperform Rick on the next test. But on the next test, the kid becomes speechless again, as Rick just tanked a fourth nature spell with ease. The examiner shocked and compliments Rick for being skilled enough to handle that much attacks. Rick appreciates it and says, "I am doing my best, sir." But the instructor couldn't able to believe that Rick is using his full potential. He's doing with ease without any effort. So he advises him to use a higher tier defensive magic from now on to see how far Rick can go with his powers. But Rick tells him that he only knows how to cast first-order spells and doesn't know how to use other ones. So he really is doing the best he can. But the examiner couldn't believe that Rick is only capable of using first-order spells, since he has such a precise control over his mana. But Rick assures him that there won't be any problem, since what he has seen so far, his first-order spells should more than enough to handle anything that the examiner could throw at him. The examiner takes that as a personal insult. So he prepares a fifth-order spell to show Rick that he shouldn't take someone like him lightly. As he casts the spell and unleashes a shock cyclone, a massive shockwave echoes through the kingdom, so far that even a knight on the other side of the town could hear that. A few moments later, the knight arrives at the exam center to check if anything is going wrong here or not. Then he gets to know that an adventurer named Rick was able to completely destroy a green category punching bag with his bare hands and perfectly blocked a fifth nature spell that you have just seen while only using ordinary defense magic. The knight was thinking she must be fooling him or something like that, but she was so damn serious and clear about that, so he admits it could be true. On the other side, Rick is now taking his written exam, and he looks focused and confident for this one. After that, the test is over. Rick takes a break with O.N.A outside, and she asks him, how was his written exam? Rick confidently assures her that he will get the 100% in the written test. There's no way he could fail. But he's still not sure that his overall scores will be good enough to pass the whole test. O.N.A asks if he's worried about his practical marks or not, but he replies he did pretty well in all them. However, he still got an F in his mana exam, so he's not sure how that will affect his overall scores in the whole test. Rionette assures him that he should be fine after all of the hard work he did. Moments later, Fried comes up to Rick and screams at him for doing too well in his exams. Rick doesn't understand what is going on, so he assumes that the kid must have been lost his mind. So he offers to help him. Fried was upset because this was supposed to be his day where he would show off his exceptional skills to all of those peasants. But Rick went there and destroyed everything and taken those lights he wanted to have and outperformed Fried, so he's now crying about this. Rick tries to tell Fried that he didn't intend to steal his spotlight, but by this time, the kid's elder sister suddenly appeared, and after seeing her little brother crying, she immediately starts yelling at Rick. Rick asks if she's a relative of Fried or not. So, she introduces herself as Angelica Dermuit, the eldest daughter of the Dermuit family. Fried wasting no time, telling his sister that this 40-year-old man ruined his day. Rick gets offended and says he is only 30. But Fried keeps calling him a 40-year-old man. Eventually, Angelica throws her glove at Rick to challenge him for a fight. But Rick doesn't realize it's a challenge, so he picks up the glove with no clue. But Rionette informs him that as per noble customs, picking up that glove is a declaration of accepting the challenge. So Angelica happily sets the venue for them to begin their fight and says she's going to take a great pleasure in punishing Rick for the crime of making her brother cry. But if they are going to do this, Rick has to accept the rules. Rules in the Opium Kingdom allows a winner to set a penalty for the loser if they win. So she sets a penalty that the loser will have to serve the winner for the rest of their life from the beginning so that she can confirm that she will win the fight. Angelica is apparently a second-class royal knight, but Rick doesn't know how powerful a second-class royal knight is, so Rionette gives him some context and tells him that a second-class royal knight would be around B rank. Now, Rick starts freaking out again because he knows B-rank adventurers are able to take out huge monsters on their own, but Rionette doesn't think it's a big deal and asks Rick to hold back so he doesn't end up killing her. Rick couldn't able to believe at Rionette's words, holding back against someone at that much rank while he's still so low-rank individual, and he still doesn't know how strong he actually is. So Rionette tells him to just have faith in all the training and hard work he has done for the last 2 years. All of a sudden, all the traumatic training moments he had to go through comes flooding into his mind, so he ends up vomiting. Rick curses Rionette for making him remember such a torture. So Rionette reminds him that if he was able to survive all of that, he shouldn't have to have a problem handling Angelica. After all, he is a member of the strongest party on this continent, so he should have a little more faith in himself. Now Rick realizes that she's right, so he gets up to face Angelica, but he's still not sure how well his current level of strength will hold up against a second-class knight. But there's no need to worrying about it now. Angelica is confident that she is much stronger than Rick, so she says she will hold back against him so that he doesn't get died. She then begins to charging up her attack, and uses her lightning speed to show Rick how capable she is, and she tries to make him afraid that her speed has earned her the title of the Lightning Speed Angelica, that no one was able to dodge her move. Rick was also pretty surprised, but not for the reason we are thinking. Angelica says she is going to finish this thing off right now. So, she now applies a real attack using her light speed again. But as she's approaching, Rick can't believe what he's seeing because Angelica is moving so slow for him. He now mockingly thinking that the power scale must have been high on Opium if they thought she was worthy of the title called Lightning Speed, because she is moving slower than Rick's normal running speed. So Rick easily dodges her move. Angelica can't believe her eyes for what she just saw. It should be impossible for an F-rank adventurer to dodge her move and keeping up with her speed. In fact, only first-class knights have ever managed to react to her speed, so she makes up her mind that Rick gets lucky this time, but she won't let it happen again. So, she attempted another attack with her high speed once again, but as before, in Rick's eyes, she is still moving so slow. So he wonders how she has possibly made it to be in a rank like this. He is starting to realize that he may become pretty strong now. But as he is getting ready to dodge Angelica's attack, she gets stumbled by a rock and unintentionally unlocks a complex blade attack on Rick. Rick then wasn't able to predict any of her moves and strikes, so he is having trouble dodging her attack. By the time Angelica finally stops herself, he no longer thinks he can call himself strong because he is completely stressed by that move. However, Angelica was also shocked by this incident as she didn't prepare all of that. But she tries to play it cool and tells Rick she's impressed that Rick manages to dodge her last move, because she's totally meant to do that. But that just means she will have to go even further to overwhelm him. So she uses her special technique, which allows her to move 3 times faster than her previous speed. But even though she's 3 times faster than her previous speed, she's still pretty slow to Rick. However, he chooses not to attack carelessly since he doesn't know what kind of tricks she has in her mind, so he dodges instead, and that left Angelica flabbergasted that Rick can still keep up with her pace. She can only use that technique 2 more times before she runs out of energy. So she gives it everything she has and goes for one last attack, but she trips once again. So, Rick tries to intercept her with a punch and ends up blowing a hole in the ground. Angelica realizes that she would have died from a punch like that if it had connected. So she gets scared and questioned Rick about who he really is. Rick simply says he is a former receptionist turned adventurer and he is eager to continue his fight with Angelica. But Angelica immediately surrenders herself so that she doesn't end up getting killed. Rick isn't understood why she's giving up too fast. But her surrendering makes him the winner of this match. And as per the penalty Angelica set, she now has to serve him for the rest of her life. Angelica had forgotten all about that penalty, so she does the only thing she can and runs away with her lightning speed. Rick doesn't really care about the bet, so he didn't chase her after. And the results of the exam will be coming out soon, so he needs to go back and check if he passed or not. This is when O.N.A tells Rick that the rest of his mentors will be coming to check on him. So Rick starts freaking out again because their presence always spells trouble for him. So, that's it for today. Stay tuned for the next part of the video. The next part of this video will be amazing and it's coming soon. Stay tuned with our channel and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos and make me motivated to post regularly with your love. Peace.